Hello everyone, I'm Santiago and today I'm going to be testing Sherlock Holmes, the Apple starter on the GeForce GTX 950. If you want to see how it runs on the GeForce GTX 750 Ti, check the description below, I left a link to the video there. And for FPS monitoring, I'll be using Cam. If you want to learn how to use it, click on the top right corner of the video where the Cam logo is, or check the description below if you want to learn more. So, Sherlock Holmes, the Apple starter. As you can see here, I'm now into the game. Before this part there is a long video, like 2 minutes long, that you cannot skip, which runs at 26 frames per second for some reason. But whatever, you can still watch it just fine. The thing is, this game uses a lot of depth of field. It runs on Unreal Engine 3, just like Crimes and Punishments. And as you can see here, I'm using maximum settings 1080p. And as you can see, we're hovering between 40 to 60 frames per second. I'm skipping some of the dialogue because it's not important. But mostly the biggest performance hit in this game is depth of field. On the 750 Ti, when depth of field showed up, the game always dropped below 30 frames per second, which was very annoying since you get depth of field even when you are analyzing a character like I'm doing right now. So look at this, you select a part you want to analyze, there's depth of field all around. I dropped to 38 frames per second. But in the 950 it's not as bad as in the 750 Ti. This one hang-up's way better. But as you can see, the depth of field effect is what kills performance for the most part. When you speak to characters on cinematics, all that kind of stuff that is rendered in real time, there is a heavy use of depth of field, which kills performance for the most part. Even when you pause the game, you can see a lot of depth of field. And when you look at your journal for your objectives, your clues, all that kind of stuff, the frame rate drops a lot. I mean, if you're running the game at 60 frames per second and you open your journal, it drops to 40. It's just ridiculous. I tried disabling depth of field from the INI file, the config file in documents. I disabled depth of field there since this is an Unreal Engine title and you can do that, but it kinda destroyed the aesthetic of the game. I mean, the sun was way more shiny, it was a mess. I mean, it destroyed the graphics for me when I disabled depth of field, but the performance drops when depth of field is on screen are way reduced, so you don't have as much performance tips, but it's not worth it in my opinion to disable it since it kills the aspect of the game. I mean, I don't know how, maybe most of the visuals are linked to the depth of field. But I don't know, I tried to disable it and it wasn't a good idea because it destroyed the game's visuals. So I suggest you don't try to disable it. But for the most part the game runs fine. I suggest capping it at 30 frames per second. I think that is 1080p 30 frames per second on consoles. That's what I read on the internet. The developers claimed that they were targeting 1080p 30 frames per second on this one. This is not like Crimes and Punishments in story-wise. This is a different version of Sherlock Holmes. This one has a daughter and all that kind of stuff. I noticed that the characters are less detailed than the previous game.
Thank you, sir.
Sherlock's face in the previous game was way better. But overall the game looks way better. Okay, so now as you can see we're in Holmes' apartment. And in this game now the maps are way bigger. I mean, you can explore this part of the city. As you can see, you can go outside. And here there's a big problem for me. I mean, aesthetically. I mean, look at this. I'm 60 here. When I turn there, I drop to 46, 47. It's kind of a mess there. But mostly the problem here, there's a lot of popping. Not texture popping, just level of quality popping. I mean, you see people in low quality and you are like 2 meters close and the quality of the person just pops up. The same with buildings, you will see windows popping up. I mean, even the lights on the streets are like popping up there. If you see the building back in the back and the trees, they just like change quality very drastically. It's very noticeable. I don't know why they did that, but it's very ridiculous and noticeable, so they could have been more discreet about it. And here when I open my journal, as you can see, the frame rate drops like 20 frames per second. I dropped to 41 but if I'm not there, I'm at 50 to 60 frames per second. So yeah, the depth of field used there is kind of a mess. Now 900p, as you can see, the highest setting. Even putting everything on the minimum, it won't disable depth of field for me. So the FPS drops are still there. I didn't find a way to maintain in 60 frames per second, not even on 900p, 1080p. I mean, it's not stable at all. Some people like ACG, Angry Center Gaming, claim that the game cannot maintain 60 frames per second even on a GTX 980. So there's actually a problem here. They should have used a newer engine. This is Unreal Engine 3. It might not be capable of delivering, well, good draw distances and all that kind of stuff without killing the performance. But overall, the game is totally playable. It's capped at 62 frames per second. So my suggestion is just cap the game at 30 frames per second if playing on 900p or 1080p. As you can see here, the depth of field, I went from 60 to 40 frames per second. Now I'm going into the big part where Sherlock lives, and I will show you again how the game runs. But I only managed to get 60 mostly stable frames per second on 720p. With a 750 Ti, I could never hit 60 constant. It will drop all over the place once depth of field showed up. But overall, the game just works. I mean, it's playable. Oh yeah, my suggestion, just keep it capped at 30 frames per second if possible. It will be a more consistent experience, since here it goes from 60 to 40, sometimes to 30 if depth of field shows up. Kind of a mess. You can also play at 1440p, but I didn't record that resolution. With 1440p, it runs above 30 frames per second, but when depth of field shows up, you'll drop below 30, so in my opinion, it wasn't worth it. But as you can see here, I'm having 62 frames per second, depth of field shows up, I have 49. You see it's like a 12 FPS hit, so I don't know. Here's 720p, as you can see, with everything on the maximum, as usual. And well, I don't know. As I said, changing settings didn't do much, even anti-aliasing. It seems to be some kind of post-processing anti-aliasing. But the game is playable, which is what matters. If you play at 720p, you may want to just keep it at 60, it will run fine. The thing is maintaining 60 in some difficult scenes, for saying it some way, when there's a lot going on. But as you can see here, I'm getting 60s. I will go outside and show you. Let me see. And as you can see, this game uses a bit more than 4 gigs of RAM, so keep that in mind. But it uses around 1.5 gigabytes of VRAM if you're playing on 1080p. But as you can see here now, I'm getting mostly constant 60s with some drops to 58 frames per second. I suggest using VSync in this case. There's a lot of screen tear, which is really noticeable. I mean, if I noticed it, I don't really mind screen tear, but this one was very noticeable. It was quite annoying, and with the popping of the quality of the meshes is very annoying. As you can see, when depth of field shows up here, I don't drop below 60. But as you can see, the GPU usage was 51%, and when the depth of field showed up, go up to 81%. So yeah, depth of field is very demanding, which is overused in this game, so we should have an option that allows us to either disable it or lower the quality, so we don't drop below 30 on lower end cards or higher resolutions. But yeah guys, for the most part, on 720p the game isn't dropping below 60 for the most part, maybe to 58 frames per second when they're loading new assets, but the game runs fine, so I don't know. Maybe if you want to get it, watch a review before. I suggest watching one from Angry Center Gaming, ACG, which you can look it up on YouTube. There's already a review for this game, which is very interesting. He compares this game to Crimes and Punishments, which was very interesting to see. But yeah guys, that's pretty much all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.